World has been consistently one of the most evil decks in Yu-Gi-Oh! But now, because of these two cards as well as some other ones, I think that Dark World can be getting into the territory where Konami could think about banning this powerful deck. I know you may see some other versions of this deck, but I'm gonna prove to you why this particular version is a certified grandma's favorite. This is gonna be the best available one you're gonna find, and if you don't prepare for the options that I'm gonna be sharing you, you'll get completely steamrolled. So as my boy TJ would say, welcome to the Dark World! We have cookies! Okay guys, so really quick, if you like what you see right here, this is actually my very own mat. It is the Clash of the New Gods that I have on TheCaliEffect.com. You can go ahead and check me out for all different types of Yu-Gi-Oh accessories. I'll actually even make a pre-order tab that you guys can get, and we'll have those mats to you sometime around November or December if you're willing to wait. But overall guys, go ahead and get your mats today before it is too late. Let's go ahead and start off with the main Big Daddy Grapha, Dragon Lord of the Dark World. I only played 2 copies of this card because you don't necessarily need a 3rd copy. This card is really good at being able to clear your opponent's boards. I want you to think of it as a Raigeki break, but what a lot of people sleep on is being able to special summon your opponent's cards. This deck is going to be built on often being able to gain the 2nd effect of your Dark World monsters, which is really cool and highly slept on. I think it's an underappreciated aspect for this deck. Moving on, we do play 3 copies of Rainbow over King of the Dark World. This card is also incredibly nasty. This plus Jin the Diamond Tiger can rip 2 cards out of your opponent's hand, allow you to special summon a monster to your field, and draw 2 cards. It's actually incredible how the secondary effects of these monsters are really important in this new version of the Dark World deck. I also want to point out that so many players are really focused on hand looping the opponent, just ripping as many cards out of the opponent's hand. They don't necessarily appreciate the other aspects that Dark World bring to the table, and this video is going to be showcasing them. I do play the 1 copy of Silva, Warlord of the Dark World, because this is not banned in the TCG, so definitely hand loop the living daylights out of your opponent when available. But I actually do play 1 copy of Gold Wooloo, or Warlord of the Dark World, actually giving me some flexibility if I'm not able to hand loop my opponent or if it's not the best thing to do. What a lot of people forget about Dark Worlds is those second hidden effects. They're absolute gems. Warlord allows you to be able to destroy 2 of your opponent's cards, which can be crazy for allowing you to be able to board break or even prevent your opponent from making boards if you can discard this on your opponent's turn. Now, I did think about playing cards like Rainbow, which would allow me to wipe my opponent's entire board, but the reason why I went against it is because Rainbow doesn't have its own summoning effect, and I would be really reliant on forcing my opponent to force me to discard. Make no mistake though, big dog, I do have some more spice coming forward, but for right now, there is 3 copies of Genta, Gateman of the Dark World. This card is widely debated on if you can play 2 or if you can play 3. I think 3 copies of Genta is pretty good, but I can see the reason why players would drop it down to 2. After 3 Genta, this is pretty standard, but 3 copies of Snow, Unlight of the Dark World. Again, people sleep on these hidden effects of these Dark World cards. Being able to potentially special summon an opponent's monster to your field to use for cards like Saryuja Skull Dread actually does come up. There's actually times where I'm able to summon my opponent's monsters like Kashtira Fenrir, which is really good at helping me break their board, as well as get a search into the important Dark World card that I need. But Snow, of course, is incredibly standard. Just keep in mind of that 2nd effect. Another card that's really standard is Ceruli, Guru of the Dark World. This is a lot of times how you're able to force your other Dark World effects. Isn't the only way now, which I think is really cool. But I only think that 1 copy of Ceruli is good if you're deciding to play this tech that I'm using right now. It's Parl, Hermit of the Dark World. This card is crazy. I want you guys to think of Parl as a Monster Reborn for any of your Dark Worlds, and you guys should know how important Monster Reborn is for the Dark World deck. But the cool thing about Parl is that it can reborn Dark World monsters to your opponent's side of the field, so essentially it is a second Ceruli, but it's also another copy of any of your Dark World monsters that you need back to your field in a pinch. But what's even crazier is Parl's 2nd effect, allowing you to special summon a graveyarded or banished fiend. It is crazy on so many cool things you can do with Pearl. I think Pearl is incredibly slept on, just like how I think Beige, Vanguard of the Dark World, is also another slept on card, a monster that you can freely special summon as many times as you want to, but also normal summon and be a level 4 Dark World monster. That's going to wrap it up for the Dark World monsters in this deck. I think we do play some really powerful spells, 3 copies of Gates of the Dark World. Keep in mind, this card is not once per turn. As long as you activate another copy of Gates, you're chilling, banish, discard, draw a card. But for the rest of the Dark World cards, we're going to get a little bit controversial. As you guys should already know, most players are playing only 1 copy of Dark World a session. Reason why is because having a session without Grapha is like having jelly with no peanut butter. Until we get more Dark World fusion cards, I think a session is a solid 1 copy of Dark World Archives. This card is incredible. Draw 2, discard 1, and getting you out of pinches while also raising the attack of your Dark World monsters. Now here's where the controversy comes on. I only play 1 copy of Dark Corridor. No! I'm actually not against playing multiple copies of Dark Corridor in your Dark World deck, but allow me to explain why I only play 1. The first thing I want to say about Dark Corridor is that it is an excellent card, but the problem with it is that it is a hard once per turn and can only search Dark World monsters. This pretty much means that after you resolve your Dark Corridor, if you draw into another copy, the card is completely dead, useless, finished. And at any given time, if you already have your Dark World combo going, the card is also dead, completely useless, and finished. Now, I'm not against a player playing multiple copies of Dark Corridor. I 100% understand, especially some of the cards that I'm going to show you are really, really expensive, and you could opt to play another copy of Dark Corridor or maybe even 2 instead. But the card that I've been trying with a ton of success is Charge into the Dark World. This card is a searchable Monster Reborn, and like I said, you know how much this deck loves Monster Reborn. Being able to summon monsters like Pearl Hermit of the Dark World back to your side of the field to bounce to your hand is incredible, but also summoning monsters like Cerulean or even Snow to your field to be able to gain the effect of Cerulean to force them to discard 1 card, or bounce your Snow to your hand for more combos is also insane. I think Charge into the Dark World is a crazy good Yu-Gi-Oh card and is an easy card to side out when you're playing some of those more powerful cards, but you could drop it for a Dark Corridor if you so wish. Moving forward, I gotta show you guys the new cards from Age of Overlord and why it makes this deck so good. Of course, Jin the Diamond Tiger. We play 3 copies of this bad boy. This guy is crazy, and only 1 Kin the Warrior Dragon. If you were to ask me what is the correct ratio of these cards, I think that this is the only ratio that you should be playing. And the reason why it goes back to, again, I think players are so focused on being able to hand loop your opponent. I don't think that is the only way to win with Dark World. Summoning Jin the Diamond Tiger is decent, but Kin is the real MVP. It is a graceful charity. It allows you to draw 2 cards and discard 1. It's also a way to be able to trigger your Dark World monsters' other effects. I prioritize getting Jin than Kin, and I play a reinforcement of the army to be able to get into Jin. If you ever draw Kin, just remember, you got Saryuja. Now that's all that we have for the normal summons of the deck, because typically that's the only card you'll be normal summoning. There is a danger engine inside of this deck, and I'll be able to explain why I play these cards at this amount. There's 1 copy of Danger Bigfoot. This is actually the most dangerous card in the deck. And the reason why I say this is because Bigfoot actually has an opportunity of not getting me anything if it is discarded. The other one's almost guaranteed to get me something. Danger Nessie searches me any danger monster, so yeah, no, that's good. Danger Mothman is pretty much Dark World dealings at the very worst, and is a level 4 monster. Danger Chupacabra says special summon any danger monster as long as I've activated 1 before. Susanoko and Jackalope are both free special summons. Now, the reason why I would not exceed over 8 danger monsters inside of my deck is because when you start to see multiple danger monsters of the same name, things start to go really, really downhill. And also some of the other danger monsters don't have the best effects. Also, having 25% of your deck being dedicated to be able to draw, discard, and special summon is pretty good. Lastly, for my blowout cards, here's where things get really, really expensive. I play 2 copies of Triple Tactic Thrust and 1 copy of Triple Tactic Talent. Now, the ironic thing about Triple Tactic Thrust is that if you're playing this deck, you can force your opponent to allow you to use Thrust because of Cerulean, Kin, or Jin. With that being said, obviously Triple Tactic's Talent becomes a completely live card too. I understand if you guys cannot afford these cards, guys. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a pastime. It should not be a job. My biggest suggestion to you would be playing cards like Foolish Burial Goods, because sending Dark World Accession to your graveyard can allow you to be able to discard a card from your hand. It's really good. Also, you can double back with that Foolish Burial Goods to be able to send cards like Metal Foes Fusion to the graveyard to be able to draw another card. My last card was Foolish Burial. I do not play card destruction, and it's simply because there are so many players that are playing decks like Tearlament that would really wreck me if I were to be able to use that. Of course, big dog, if you're feeling risky, you can go ahead and play that card destruction, but Foolish Burial Goods is strictly to get Grapha into the graveyard because cycling into your Dark World monsters is really, really good. Sometimes you can even send Rainbow Overking to the graveyard too. But that's the main deck consisting of 40 cards. There's 2 copies of Grapha, Dragon Overlord of the Dark World. Of course, you're going to summon this card very often. For the 5s, there's only 1 copy of Underworld Goddess of the Closed World, really good for getting over cards like Pearly Noir and some of those other powerful cards that the opponent will use to stop you. For the 4s, there's 1 copy of Appaloosa, 1 copy of Nightmare Griffin, and 1 copy of Saryuja Skuldread. Every single one of these cards are amazing. They provide you different modes of operation for this particular deck. There's only 1 Link 3 and Nightmare Unicorn. I don't think that there's a need for another one. For the Link 2s, I'm gonna have to divide this up because there's 1 copy of Nightmare Phoenix, 1 copy of McCraker, and 1 copy of Akashic. I think that these are, for more or less, pretty mandatory. Now, 2 more Link monsters that I do play. One of them is incredibly expensive. SP Little Knight is the new card from the Age of Overlord set. I think that it works so good with IP Masquerena because this deck can just summon bodies and bodies of monsters on the field. Being able to use this little combo in tandem is crazy. Plus, IP Masquerena can also make monsters like Nightmare Unicorn, Appaloosa Bowl of the Goddess, Nightmare Griffin, and Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. So I think it's actually perfect for this deck. But completely understandable if you cannot afford SP Little Knight. Consider other monsters like Cross Sheep, really good when you summon your Grapha Dragon Lord. And then there's Security Dragon. Security Dragon is actually really, really good for being able to bounce additional cards. For the Xseed monsters, I play 1 copy of Daggerus, 1 copy of Baguska. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't been using Daggerus a lot, but Baguska, when I get in a bind like Abyss Dweller, Baguska comes up. Another card that I do play is Star Slayer, Typhoon, Sky Crisis. This could be your Abyss Dweller if you guys can't afford it. I think that this card is completely ridiculous for this particular deck because it's just so easy to just summon a monster, slam on top of this, and make sure you can get rid of cards like Abyss Dweller. Okay, big dog, so Dark World typically doesn't have a combo, but it now does thanks to the new Jin and Ken cards. I'll be able to show you what you mainly want to do with this deck, but you'll be able to do so much more depending on the more cards you have. Of course, big dog, if you want to see some test hands for this particular deck, I do place them on my Patreon as a special thank you for helping me pay my editors, but allow me to show you what is the main focus of this deck. So again, Jin plus Rainbow is now full combo. Something that Dark World never had was a dedicated combo. But what we will do here is we will normal summon Jin into a monster zone that does not occupy under the extra monster zone and use its effect to be able to special summon Ken. I'm gonna move these down a little bit just so you guys can get a better visual of what's going on. But what happens now is that Ken's effect will trigger. This will allow us to draw 2 cards from our deck. So I'm gonna go ahead and draw this card, and I'm gonna draw this card, and then discard 1 card from our hand. We will discard the Rainbow of the Dark World, and that effect will trigger, allowing us to be able to add Silva to our hand, and then special summon a Dark World monster to either field. We'll special summon Cerilli. Now, Cerilli's effect will activate here. It forces us to discard the Silva, which then gets special summoned to the side of the field, and now our opponent will move down from 5 cards into their hand to 3 cards in their hand. And I wish I would say we would be done right here, but we're not. Let's say if we had, for example, a card like Triple Tactics Thrust. Since our opponent did use a monster effect, we can activate Triple Tactics Thrust to be able to get Triple Tactics Talent. And then we can activate Triple Tactics Talent, actually this time using its effect to take. We will take Ken the Warrior Dragon to our side of the field, and then we will activate the effect of Ken to be able to special summon Jin, and now Jin's effect will rip another card out of our opponent's hand. So we essentially got 2 effects with Triple Tactics Talent. We got the take and we got the discard effect. From here, we have 2 monsters with the same type and attribute, so we're going to go ahead and link those 2 monsters off into our Akashic Magician here. And it's really, really important that we summon both Cerilli and our Silva into the same zones on the opponent's side of the field and on our side of the field, so we can use Akashic with the bounce. So in this particular sequence, we still have 5 cards in hand, guys. Our opponent has 2 cards in hand, they'll have 3 cards in hand, and we can still continue to keep combo. We actually have 6 cards, so my apologies. But let's say if we were to take it a step further. To make this just one step further, we would need any card that would allow us to discard. I'm going to go ahead and turn that card effect to discard. Let's just say one of them is Agenta, guys, and we'll continue to go forward with this. I'll use the effect of Genta to be able to search Gates of the Dark World, and now I'm going to activate Gates of the Dark World. Using its effect, we'll banish the Genta, discard the Cerilli, draw another card into our hands, chat. So we're going to get this card into our hand, and then trigger the effect of Cerilli and Genta. Cerilli will summon itself to our opponent's side of the field. Genta will summon itself to our side of the field, and then Cerilli's effect will activate, allowing us to special summon Silva again, which will remit the remaining 2 cards in our opponent's hand. Now our opponent has 0 cards in hand, which is kind of incredible, but the even crazy thing about this is that we can still take this further. The only thing that we need here is one extender. That's all we need, a monster that can summon itself to the side of the field. I'm gonna say, for example, we have a beige in our hand, and then we'll return the Genta to be able to summon Rainbow to our side of the field. In this particular instance, I'm going to go ahead and use the effect of Genta to be able to add another Gates of the Dark World, but then I'm not even going to use it just yet. I'm actually going to use my Rainbow and my Silva for a link summon, my McCraker from the Underworld. This card's really, really important. I'm going to use the effect of McCraker, targeting my Silva and discarding my Beige from my hand. Now you can see why it's really, really important. To special summon my Silva to the side of the field, and then trigger my Beige to summon itself. From here, I'll return the Silva to my hand to special summon Rainbow, and I'm still not done here. I can use both Akashic and the Rainbow, as well as the Beige, for a link summon into Nightmare Griffin here. Now, Nightmare Griffin has a couple of amazing effects. The most important effect right now is that my opponent cannot activate the effect of special summon monsters unless they point to a link arrow, meaning that even if somehow my opponent kept these 2 monsters, whatever monster that they link to won't be able to use its effect because it won't be pointing at anything. But another thing that I can do here is with the effect of Nightmare Griffin, I can discard a card from my hand. I'll actually discard the Danger Nessie, which is really, really good to be able to set Triple Tactics talent back to my side of the field, and then I'll trigger the effect of Danger Nessie. In this particular scenario, it does not matter. I'll add a Danger Bigfoot into my hand. If you guys wanted to take it one step further, the danger monster that you probably should add is Susanoko or Danger Jackalope, because that guarantees an additional summon. But let's take, for example, I have a monster like Snow and Grapha in my hand. Let's say that those are the remaining cards. With this particular hand, I can activate Gates to replace my Gates, and then I'll use Gates effect to be able to banish Genta to discard Snow to draw any random card. The effect of Snow would activate. We'd be able to add any Dark World card from our deck to our hand. Our choice is going to be Dark World Accession. And from here, I can pretty much land a finishing blow here. I can activate Dark World Accession. What's my last card? Oh, it's a Rainbow. That's even better. I can discard both Grapha and Rainbow to the graveyard to be able to fusion summon into my Grapha Dragon Lord. The effect of my Rainbow will allow me to add a gold Wooloo to the Dark World, and my Grapha will be able to destroy Jin the Diamond Tiger on the field. So as you can see, in this particular situation, my opponent will be starting off with 1 card in hand, 1 card on field. They won't be able to activate any special summon monster effects unless they point to something, which is going to be really, really hard to do. Also, if they can activate a monster effect, I can use Grapha's effect to turn that card into discard 1 card from my hand instead. Effectively, I control the entire game right here, and that's just off of that slight combo.